Jovan, Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers postgame reaction show. Just got back from Crypto.com Arena, where the Luka Doncic era has officially begun in Los Angeles. Luka Doncic played his first game as a Laker. What about as well as realistically possible, considering the Lakers won by 19 points, 132-113. And Luka, after having missed roughly 6 weeks or so, he's been out since Christmas with that calf strain. He shook off the rust, and the one thing was his threes didn't fall, as JJ kind of jokingly said post game. But outside of that, the passing, the playmaking, some of the highlights. He had a step back three on Walker Kessler, got to the rim, hit the fadeaway in the mid post. Like he just, you see the vision, and the vision is this is going to be a special offense. It was humming all night. But before we get into all that, you guys know the drill. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. And for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Appreciate you all. I know it is a late night. I got back after 12 and it was, I had to write 2 stories for The Athletic, and, things went late post game. So I appreciate your patience, and I appreciate you all tuning in live. So shout out to Fang Charlie, Braden, Paul, Jan. Jan said early gang. The Sir 420, Mr. TD, Glenn, Dark Galaxy, Kevin, J Note, Lego Tortoise Builder, Jack. I think I've gotten everybody. Brandon, Craig, Billionaire. Shout out to everybody. I will answer this first one. Harmon, do media members get a free Luka shirt too? Yes, I do have a couple of them. And so let's get into the overarching takeaway of tonight's game. And I think whenever my thoughts are this, that Lakers won by 19. They improved to 32-19. They have now won 6 straight games, 12 of 14 overall. And anytime, like we've seen it a lot with the Lakers with some of these big moments when like LeBron's passing a milestone or like post trade or whatever, like sometimes there can be some lulls or sort of the moment almost feels too big and it's a little underwhelming. And that was the exact opposite tonight. The Lakers set a tone from the beginning. They looked pretty good from the beginning. Luka was a seamless fit within the offense. I think within their small ball system, he fit in well defensively and with his rebounding and just physicality. You forget how big he is, but then you see him stand next to Rui and stand next to LeBron, and he's not that much smaller than those two guys from a height perspective. He's basically the same size as Rui, a little bit smaller than LeBron. So just adding another player like that into the lineup, and when kind of with the reshuffling of everything, like you just saw how it could work on both sides of the ball. So I think that the biggest thing for me is like the Lakers continue to roll, and Luka, I think of all the things he said post game, one of the things that I think is going to fly under the radar a bit was he was asked about what it was like to be traded and be on this team, dating back to last weekend and not be able to play up until this point. He basically had to sit out and watch a week due to injury. And he said the biggest thing he observed was like how connected this group is on both sides of the ball and how excited that made him to want to play with them and how badly he wanted to be out there with his new teammates. And I think you got that sense with everyone on the floor. And sometimes they're even like overpassing, which tends to be a thing when you put a new piece in a group together. But I think that's certainly a problem you like to have rather than the opposite of guys just calling their number or playing selfish basketball or whatever. So I thought Luka fit in They certainly adapted the offense around him a bit, and I will touch on that with one of my 3 takeaways. But overall, just another impressive win for the Lakers, another wire-to-wire win, and this group is just absolutely rolling, and they did not miss a beat with Luka. And again, that we've seen scenarios not just with the Lakers, but with other teams when like you make a big trade, you try to acclimate a new piece. You can kind of have a setback, or the other team can kind of take advantage of that moment, and that was not the case tonight. So I thought the Lakers passed the mini test of the evening with flying colors, and they improve to again 32-19, and they are establishing themselves as a legitimate home court advantage threat right now, and that's all I think you could ask for with this current group and current roster. Stat of the night for me, I'm going to point out 2. One is Luka Doncic only had 1 turnover in his, depending on which box score you look at, he either played 23 or 24 minutes. So let's just go with 24. He only had 1 turnover. And that to me was impressive, just because for a guy to have missed basically 6 weeks and come back with a new team and handle the ball a lot. He had the ball a lot in his hands, and he had a pretty high usage, relative, especially adding that type of piece in compared to like LeBron and Austin. And he took care of the ball. And like you see why he's so special offensively. And there were times where guys were not ready for his passes. I asked JJ about that after the game, of just like the adjustment of learning to play with Luka and just having to be ready to get a pass at any moment from any angle. And he had several no-look passes where he'd kind of be dribbling, and then he would do a jump pass, which is like, for 99% of ball handlers, you don't want to throw jump passes, but he throws like an over-the-head jump pass, no-look bullet to the opposite corner. And, a couple of them were for Rui, a couple of them were for Dorian, but just his command over the court and that size and playmaking and vision all together, it's just really special, which is no surprise. But I think actually seeing it within the Lakers offense, like it's one thing to know who Luka is and what he did in Dallas, and it's another thing to actually see it within the context of the Lakers. And I think tonight we saw it. And I look at the 1 turnover as just a side of things to come, where of course there'll be other nights that he takes more chances maybe and has more turnovers. But I think for a guy to be playing his first game in 6 weeks with a new group, to only have 1 turnover, I think that's a testament to his ball handling, his playmaking, his passing, his decision making, and just how special he is on the offensive end. And then the second stat of the night for me is going to be 9 rebounds from Austin Reaves. And as a byproduct of Luka joining the group and LeBron being LeBron, Austin obviously took a step back tonight and was not as involved offensively when those two were on the floor. Now, the Lakers split the minutes up a bit, and Luka is on a minutes restriction. So there were some shifts where Austin was able to have his own unit, and he looked like the Austin that we've seen over the last couple of months, and he was more the primary guy and just running the show. But when he was out there with Luka and LeBron, he was more of a second side guy, and the ball was not as much in his hands in terms of playmaking, running pick and roll, etc. And I think what Austin needs to do, and this is exactly what he did, was help out on the glass, because the Lakers are, I think, still like not a good defensive rebounding team. And it's something that they need to work on. And it needs to be a lot of gang rebounding, a lot of sandwich rebounding, and it needs to really be a collective effort. And then, 2, they need guys to step up defensively. And I thought Austin did that, whether it was Clarkson or like whoever he was matched up with. I thought he did a solid job, and he looked like the Austin from the first couple of seasons of his career. And I think, in my opinion, my operating theory has just been, when Austin has to do a certain amount offensively, it just takes away ultimately, because he plays so hard in general, it takes away from his legs defensively, and he's not been as effective defensively. And of course, the Jazz were not going to punish him necessarily, so it also could have been a matchup thing. But I think the combination of defense and rebounding we saw from Austin, I mean, he led the group in rebounding. And for a 6'5" shooting guard to do that, I mean, one, I think it partly speaks to some of the Lakers' limitations defensively. I think Jackson Hayes had 2 rebounds as the starting center tonight. But I also think it speaks to Austin and the selfless attitude he approaches the game with, and just him buying into this new role that's going to be an adjustment for him after being the number 3 and sometimes even the number 2 when obviously LeBron or AD was out more recently. So it's going to be an adjustment for Austin, but I thought tonight he handled it very well, and he bought in and did exactly what the Lakers needed him to do on the glass and defensively. And so let's get into the 3 takeaways from tonight's show, and then we will get into the Q&A section. Takeaway number 1 is Luka Doncic's debut was a success. And so let's go back to the morning. So in the morning, and we learned this after the game, but LeBron James texts Luka Doncic and tells him that he's going to give him the honor of the final name in the starting lineup introduction. And that's notable because LeBron has always been the final guy. And even when AD was there, LeBron was the final guy because LeBron is LeBron. He's the biggest star in American sports and one of the biggest stars of all time. And to welcome Luka, though, to embrace him, he told him this morning, I want to give you that spot. Like, I want you to have your moment. I know this is a big night for you, and I'm going to give this to you. So that sets the tone for the day. Then, of course, Lakers have the giveaway where every seat in the arena gets a Luka Doncic t-shirt jersey, number 77, on all like 19,000, I think 79 or 76, however many seats there are at crypto.com arena. But you walk in there and it's like a playoff atmosphere because really the only time the Lakers do those types of giveaways, it's like a jersey retirement or the playoffs. Some type of special ceremonial thing. So it has that vibe. It's a national TV game on ESPN. And I get there as early as I could get there. I get there. It opened at 5 to the media. I got there at 5, and just walking around it, like there was just this palpable buzz around the arena, around the floor, and the fans were already lining up outside. And you just like talking to people about the atmosphere. Like for me, it felt like the most anticipated Laker game. And most just I guess buzz is the word I keep coming back to. Like since LeBron was about to break Kareem's record, talking to some people, they felt like it was the most since the game after Kobe passed in that first game back at then Staples Center. But like regardless, it was just, there was a level of like everyone wanted to see Luka warm up. Everyone wanted to see Luka play, and all eyes were on him all night. So then Luka comes out for his pregame warm up, and you just hear a roar. Like I was talking to someone on courtside on the sideline, and you just hear this roar, and I immediately knew, I was like, okay, Luka's coming out. So Luka comes out, and near the Lakers tunnel, there was all these fans. Like everyone was waiting for him to come out. So he comes out, does his pregame warm-up. But while he's doing his pregame warm-up, they start playing Serbian music. And for those who don't know, his dad is Serbian. He's half Serbian. He is in Luka. And one thing he did in Dallas was listen to Serbian music when he would warm up. And so when we'd go to Dallas and Luka would come out to warm up, they would change the music from the typical hip hop and pop and like whatever they're playing pregame to Serbian music. And that's how you knew Luka was there. So that the Lakers adopted that. They also adopted, he finishes his warm up with taking 3 half court shots. And I don't know if he makes 1 or if he doesn't make at least 2, but he went 0 for 3. So then he had to do push-ups with Lakers assistant Greg St. Jean. So that was something he also did in Dallas as well. So adopting his pregame routines immediately and trying to make him feel as comfortable as possible. Then we get to the actual like on-court warm-up with the layup lines with the teams, and like everybody was standing. Everybody was trying to get footage of Luka. And again, it had like this playoff atmosphere. Then we get into the starting lineups, the pregame intros. Lakers splice in Luka into the pregame video, and then they go through the starting lineups. And as you go through the first three, I think in order, it goes Rui, Austin, Jackson. And then I was curious, like, who's going to be number 4, who's going to be number 5. And then it was LeBron number 4 and Luka number 5. And I know for fans, it might not like seem like the biggest deal, but for LeBron to do that, like that is a big deal. And Luka said it's going to go back to LeBron being the last one, and we'll see how they decide that moving forward. But that was a big deal for Luka to go last, especially because going back to it, like LeBron, even with AD, what was always last. There was no like, I pass you the torch and you go. So I didn't cover the first year of AD, so I don't know if maybe he did that AD's first game or it was a little different. But talking to people around the situation, everyone was like, no, like this was a special thing for Luka. So I mean, I thought that was very that was a cool moment. Luka said, then we hear or we see on ESPN, they catch the pregame huddle and LeBron telling him, don't fit in, fit out. He used a different F word somewhere there. And it was kind of funny just because of what he told. He told Kevin Love the exact opposite, like 11 years ago in Cleveland. And he had that passive aggressive tweet where he was like, don't fit out, fit in. And that was in relation to Kevin Love. But 11 years later, he's telling Luka Doncic to fit out and not fit in. And Luka said that pregame message from LeBron gave him chills. And I think that's like this other kind of dynamic here where these guys just like really like how the other one plays. And I think you can see that on the floor. So then the game starts, and immediately anytime Luka touches the ball, the crowd is just it's buzzing. Like that was the word of the night. You just hear all this anticipation for what is Luka going to do. And so the first possession, I believe LeBron drives, swings the ball to Luka. Luka gets downhill, hits Jackson for a dunk, and that was like an appropriate way for his first touch to go. His first basket was a step back 3 on Walker Kessler, which I know on some level a lot of Laker fans enjoyed because of all the Walker Kessler speculation and rumors over the last like year or so or 6 months, whatever. And he got an offensive rebound putback. And really, I thought he played almost unselfish to a fault where he was constantly looking for his teammates. And I think that's what you want to do when you're in a new situation. But I think, of course, like Luka could call his own number whenever. And with his ability to step back and hit fadeaway jumpers over basically anybody, including centers, like he could create his own shot whenever he wants. But I thought he set the table well. He's clearly going to be the primary ball handler for this offense. And I think when he was out there, the Lakers simplified things a little bit, but you saw some double drag actions. You saw some high pick and roll where he was targeting Walker Kessler or some of the other Jazz big men. You saw some horns actions. And I think like the Lakers are still just kind of scratching the surface of what they can do offensively, but it looked great. It like, especially on the offensive end. I think defensively, I haven't touched on the starting lineup yet, and I will do that in my second takeaway. But with that starting group and with some of the lineups they're playing, I think they're going to need to rely a little bit more on the offense, just being special. And having Luka, LeBron, and Austin, I think the offense is going to be special. I know that's a bold take, but just seeing the two-man game with Luka and LeBron and them trying to feed each other and create opportunities for each other. Late in the first half, Luka hit LeBron with an outlet bullet pass for a layup. He also hit him in transition another time. And there was also a couple times where LeBron got fouled, so it didn't ultimately lead to an assist. But I think we saw Luka's passing and playmaking. It just already the Lakers were playing at a high level offensively with LeBron and Austin running the show, and now you're adding in a guy who could do all those things, and really, because he's 25 and about to be in his prime, can do them at an even higher level, at least I think from like a passing perspective. So that's just going to take the Lakers offense to another level. I think they should be a top 3 offense moving forward, if not the best in the league. And that is just like a luxury to have. And that, like, the Lakers are able to actualize their potential and go on a deep playoff run, make the conference finals, win a championship, whatever. I think it's going to be built upon having this special offense and having all this firepower, and really just knowing that when you have Luka, LeBron, and Austin on the floor, you're almost certainly going to get a great shot. And there's going to be some turnovers, right? Because that's just what tends to happen when you have guys who I think do play with a certain level of risk, and sometimes they see stuff that their teammates don't see, and that can lead to some turnovers. But overall, I think like the efficiency with those 3 guys and the offense they generate, and guys like Rui getting open threes or cuts, guys like Jackson getting lobs, guys like Dorian getting above the break, pick and pop or swing past threes. Like, all those things I think are just going to continue to happen at a high level, because you can't stop everything. You either send 2 to the ball or you play them one-on-one and they can cook you. So it doesn't really matter what you do against Luka, LeBron, Austin. And obviously Austin's not at the same level as those 2, but like, he's still been a high level playmaker for the Lakers here. But afterward, so the Lakers get the win. Luka was on a minutes restriction. We don't know exactly the number, but he ends up playing again like 23, 24 minutes. His final stat line was, pulling it up here, I was looking at the play-by-play. He finished with 14 points on 5 for 14 shooting. As I jokingly said at the top, 1 for 7 on threes, 3 for 3 at the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and only 1 turnover. Lakers were plus 15 in his minutes. So I think, again, factoring in the time away, being 6 weeks, coming off an injury, being on a minutes restriction, and being with a new team, I thought this debut went about as well as could have been expected, about as well as possible. And I think now, like, Laker fans have a sample size of what it looks like with Luka Doncic on their team, and it looks awesome. Like, that was basketball nirvana. Like, this is going to be just the Lakers' like watchability from here on out. If we're doing league pass rankings, Lakers should be number 1 or at least top 3. Like, this is going to be a really fun team to watch. So I will have more on Luka and how he looks and how he fits in the coming days, but just wanted to touch on his debut and give you my off the cuff thoughts. Takeaway number 2 for me is we have a new starting lineup again and a new rotation again. And so I asked JJ pregame about the starting lineup, and I said, are you willing to share it? Which he was. And I said, what was the calculation that went into that group? And just kind of the offense, defense, weighing both sides of it, and just how you came to that decision. So he ends up starting Jackson Hayes, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, Austin Reaves, and Luka Doncic. I think 4 of those guys were in Penn: Jackson, LeBron, Luka, and Austin. I think the 5th guy, there was some speculation as to, like, are they finally going to make the move of starting Dorian over Rui? That's been something that the fan base has been clamoring for. It's something that I've been clamoring for over a month. And especially with adding in Luka and making Jackson Hayes a full-time starting center, like, it might have been different if Mark Williams was there, in my opinion, at least because he's a really good defensive rebounder. He's a better shot blocker than Jackson, though Jackson's rim protection data is better. And I just kind of felt like at least he'd give you a certain level of size, or maybe you can get away with having Rui out there. But with Jackson and Luka being inserted around LeBron and Austin, I was like, you need a stopper out there, and they don't technically have a perimeter stopper. And if you're asking LeBron to be the perimeter stopper, like that's just a lot to put on his plate. And yes, he's going to have less on his plate because of Luka, but still, I think you want to conserve LeBron's defensive energy. So you're basically asking Rui to do it. And for as good as Rui played tonight, and I thought he had a really good game, 21 points, 6 rebounds, had a couple steals, like 8 for 14 shooting, 3 for 6 from 3. I thought he got beat off the dribble a lot and had a relatively rough defensive game. He had 4 fouls, got in foul trouble early, like just kept fouling guys on drives. And that was because he couldn't contain the ball. And I got to rewatch, and maybe that will shift my opinion upon a second watch. But like, I felt he was pretty rough defensively outside of the defensive rebounding. And I just like, it's one thing to beat the Jazz, who are 12-40 and are one of the worst teams in the league and trying to get Cooper Flag. It's another thing to do this against Denver. It's another thing to do this against Houston and Memphis and OKC and Minnesota. And like the Lakers are going to need, like right now, their 3 best defenders on a nightly basis are Dorian Finney-Smith, Jared Vanderbilt, and Gabe Vincent. Not necessarily in that order, but those 3. And they're all coming off the bench. And I think maybe the offense is just at such a level where they can get by with the current starting lineup. But I do have some apprehension longer term against more serious teams that have perimeter talent that could really challenge the Lakers. That I just don't think the status quo of the current starting group is going to be good enough defensively. And I think they've kind of hedged when asked about it by saying like, well, we're a team defense. We're not going to rely on like individual stoppers. But I think even being a good team defense, you need good defenders. And I think you could argue as like, I mean, at any point, all 5 of those starters can be minus defenders. And I think LeBron, the way that he's I think LeBron is clearly the best defender in this group. And he has been defending much better lately. But I still just look at it and I'm like, if LeBron is your best defender in the starting lineup, like I don't love that. I would rather have a DFS or a Vando or even a Gabe out there to just provide another defensive, point of attack or wing stopper player. So I think that's something like longer term they're going to have to figure out. Tonight, it didn't matter. All 5 guys played well. All five guys scored in double figures. All 5 guys had double-digit positive plus minuses. So it looked fine against Utah, right? But even with that, like Walker Kessler had 5 offensive rebounds. John Collins had 3 offensive rebounds. Lauri Markkanen had an offensive rebound. So it was just 9 offensive rebounds from their starters. And it wasn't all directly against the Lakers starters, but several of those were. And I just think the group is like kind of small defensively and just not good enough defensively. And you're not benching LeBron. You're not benching Luka. I don't think they're going to bench Austin. And I think Jackson's clearly the starting center, moving forward. So it really leaves Rui. And again, Rui's been playing well. He's been awesome offensively. I just think for what they need defensively from that position, I think it's over taxing him to try to do that. I could be wrong, and we'll see. Like they have some big games coming up. Basically got a month straight of big games, and we'll see how that ages. But JJ said to kind of bring it full circle, like he thinks Dorian is just as effective as a starter as he is coming off the bench. He thinks Rui's been playing well and deserves to continue starting. He did acknowledge he's been considering starting Dorian, but he said as long as Rui continues to play well and the starters look good together, he's not going to make a change. And I understand that. I hear him. I just think like trying to problem solve and look longer term. I have some like a lot, part of this stretch where Lakers have won 12-14, they had AD and Max, and they've continued to win without those 2, and they've beaten a couple of good teams without those 2. But it also has come with a little bit of an easier schedule. They've gotten back from the Grammy trip. And like even the Knicks game, Max played a huge part in the Knicks game, and I thought was a big part of the small ball lineups. He defended Jalen Brunson really well, and like you don't have that guy anymore. So that's just, I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent on it, but like I I think longer term, the Lakers are likely going to have to make another starting lineup change. But for now, they're rolling with this lineup as I kind of expected, but I still don't necessarily agree with it. Off the bench, so DFS has been coming in actually in both halves. He came in for Jackson like 3 to 4 minutes into the half, which I thought was pretty interesting. Like JJ had a quick hook. Despite Walker Kessler still being out there in both scenarios, he had a quick hook, brought DFS in. Then Gabe was the second guy. Then eventually Vando. And actually Jordan Goodwin had a really good game, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds. He continues to play really well. What a find for the Lakers. And this is a guy who I think should clearly be ahead of Shake and Cam in the rotation. And then like he might be playing his way into a potential roster spot if he continues to play the way he has these first couple games with the big team. And yeah, I mean, so otherwise it was like DFS basically played starter minutes. Gabe and Vando, like with it being a blowout, they played a little bit less. But I think the starting lineup looked good. And I generally agree with the rotation. I just ultimately think for this group to be more competitive with like if they're playing a Boston, if they're playing an OKC, if like I don't love the defensive matchups with this starting group, and adding one defender doesn't really change that entirely, but it at least makes me a little bit more comfortable of putting a DFS on a Tatum, on a Shea. I mean, maybe Austin guards Shea and DFS guards Jalen Williams, right? Like, you know, you can kind of cross match or dictate the matchups to some extent. Like, I feel like backcourt guys, it's going to have to be Austin unless they start Gabe, but more so with the wing types. I just have more confidence in DFS handling those matchups. And then, with all that said, so takeaway number 3 for me is the Lakers are fully leaning into being a small ball team, and that's just clear now. And there's been some speculation about potentially signing Alex Len, and I'm sure I will touch on that in the Q&A. But tonight, Jackson played 23 minutes. Again, it was a blowout, so that's not necessarily a proper reflection of how much he's going to play. But I think he's likely going to be a guy who ranges from like 22 to 28 minutes, depending on the matchup and how he's playing. Is he staying out of foul trouble? Like, I think there's going to be a lot of things that dictate Jackson's minutes, but for the most part, I think it's a range of like 22 to 28. And the rest of the time is going to be most likely small ball lineups. And it's going to be Vando at the 5, DFS at the 5, LeBron at the 5, Rui at the 5. And that's just the new reality for the Lakers is they're going to be a small, big team, right? So they're going to be small at the 5 for a lot of it. And you can really even say Jackson, he's tall and he's got length, but he plays a little bit like he's skinny. He's not a good rebounder, at least defensively. And he's not like an imposing physical presence in that sense. So you can even argue like when Jackson's out there, they're almost kind of playing small in a way. But like even putting Jackson aside, this is a group that's going to play just a lot of wings between Rui, LeBron, Luka, DFS, and Vando. They're going to rotate those 5 guys and play 3 to 4 of them at a time. And then the rest is going to be Jackson, Austin, and Gabe, and then maybe a little bit of Dalton, a little bit of Jordan, but we'll see. So I think that the Lakers have finally, like, we have a clear idea of what this group is going to look like. And there was no trying to fit in Christian Coloco or Trey Jemison into the rotation. And even if they end up adding an Alex Len or someone off of the buyout market, I doubt, or free agent market, like I doubt that player is really going to factor in. My Alex Len, I'm sure I will touch on it, but last 3 seasons, he's averaged single-digit minutes. So he's not a guy I would have high expectations for if the Lakers add him. He's 7 foot, he's 250 pounds, he's physical, he's been able to block shots and be, a solid defensive rebounder in the past. But this is a guy who has not really been relied upon in going on 4 seasons. So I would temper my expectations as to like his potential role and his potential impact if he ends up being added to the Lakers. But I really just think like at this point, it's looking like the Lakers are going to be a small ball team for like half the game. And their best lineups are probably going to be small ball lineups. And when it comes to crunch time and just big moments against other elite teams, the Lakers are going to be putting them into a situation where they have to try and match up with them. And of course, against a Jokic or a Şengün, like there's going to be some bigs that test the Lakers and their ability to go small. But I thought JJ had an interesting quote pregame when asked about the whole center situation and how they match up with teams. It might have been, I forgot if it was pregame, yeah. And he said, like, there's a lot of questioning about how we match up with so-and-so. And in this scenario, so-and-so was meant to imply Jokic. And he was like, I don't think anybody can match up with so-and-so. So we need to play our style of basketball and just, play the best that we can play. So I think the Lakers we'll see how it ultimately fares again against some of these tougher matchups and bigger matchups moving forward. But they've done it against the Knicks. They've done it against the Clippers. Like, they've had a lot of success. They did it tonight. And frankly, outside of some of the offensive rebounding, and part of that was just because they're playing such good defense and the Jazz are missing a lot of shots. Like, I think it worked tonight against a front line of Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, and John Collins. So this is the new normal for the Lakers. It's going to be a lot of small lineups, and that's going to require a lot of gang rebounding, sandwich rebounding, and smaller guys cross-matching onto bigger guys, and really just the perimeter guys playing with a certain level of physicality and awareness and focus that maybe was not as required earlier in the season. But now it's going to be, because if you are giving up a few inches when your box is somewhat out, you're going to need to out battle them and use positioning and maybe some cheap tricks to get those defensive rebounds, right? That's what I think the Lakers have to focus on moving forward, because I think ultimately the viability of this will come down to how they can defensive rebound and protect the rim. And so far, I think they've done a solid job based on their personnel and based on some of the limitations they have. But I want to see it in a bigger sample size against better teams. And we're going to get that pretty much by the end of the month. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A. I see we got some super chats. First one from Bubba and the Old Man Auburn Sports Talk. Alex Len to LA. So I got wind of this this morning, that there was some buzz about Alex Len potentially going to the Lakers. He had been waived and had tentatively agreed to go to Indiana. Now it seems like that's not happening, and that him joining the Lakers is a possibility. I've not been able to confirm that. I can just say I heard about it this morning, and then pregame with the media, it was a big talking point that other people had heard that, and it seemed to be that this is the way that this is trending. So I cannot confirm that it is going to happen, but it seems to be, talking to people around the Lakers and again, talking to other media people, they've heard similar things. It seems to be the way that this is trending. Now, as to who's going to be released, I would assume it would be Christian. I did not see him at the game tonight. So maybe that's in the works, but that's just pure speculation on my part. I've not gotten a great read on this. It's been a little weird because it kind of leaked and then nothing has come of it. And I don't know if they're figuring out the financial options, or maybe they're going to waive a couple guys. There's a lot of moving pieces with this, but it does seem like that's the way that this is trending. So tentatively, I would say if I had to bet, I would bet that he ends up being a Laker. TRav3, thank you for the super chat. JJ has been coaching his ass off. Yes. And if you guys have not checked out my episode of Buha's Block, I did 10 storylines at the 50 game mark. And one of them was JJ and his job as a coach. And I feel like it's kind of been under the radar. It's been a lot of talk about LeBron and Austin and Dorian and Vando and the small ball stuff. And then of course, Luka and Mark Williams, but JJ has been doing a great job. So he definitely deserves a lot of praise. 2 contenders. I do think the Lakers are contenders, and I feel like I'm out a little bit on a limb there, where a lot of people still don't view them or talk about them that way. I would not put them as a favorite or a heavy contender. I think they're more like a fringe contender right now, but I'm of the mind, and I think those of you who have followed me for a while, like I try to be flexible and open-minded and try to, I'm not afraid to change my opinion on something if there's new data, if I watch the film on it, if the stats say one thing and it, just like, I'm not afraid to admit I'm wrong. I'm not afraid to change my opinion or my perspective. And I could elevate them from fringe contender to like legitimate top 4-ish contender based on like how the next couple weeks go. Like I want to see a little bit more of a sample size, and I could also drop them a bit depending on how that goes. Like I'm kind of constantly thinking about where I have them in the league hierarchy. So right now, I think Boston, OKC, and Cleveland are like clearly ahead, and you can rank them in kind of whatever order you want. But I think those three are on a tier of their own. I would tentatively, then it gets tricky. I think Denver and the Knicks are like, even though the Lakers just beat the Knicks, I think those are two teams where, and then Milwaukee I'd probably throw in there. Like, I think the Lakers are in that group with probably those three teams. Maybe you could throw in Memphis or Houston if depending on how you feel about them. But I think there's like a broader kind of tier 2 of like 4 to 5 teams that the Lakers are in, and then it just kind of comes down to like how you rank them. So I'd probably put the Lakers 6th overall. And again, I think that's much higher than the consensus right now. But I think I'm higher on them, especially with, I just think the offense is going to be incredible with Luka, LeBron, and Austin. And I think they've really found something with these small ball lineups. So I'm very bullish on the Lakers. Samir Hussein, thank you for the super chat. Jovan, appreciate your insights and tireless commitment to your craft. Thank you. What are your thoughts on Luka signing an extension with the Lakers this summer? Will this be a long-term partnership? So I got asked a similar question on a recent stream, and my opinion hasn't really changed in the sense that like I think he will sign an extension or re-sign at some point, whether it's this summer or the following summer. I would not be surprised if he ends up just riding out the rest of his contract and at least going into next season and seeing just how he feels, what he wants to do. It does seem like the logical thing for him to do would be to sign a 2+1 so he could opt out and then get the 10-year max, which would get him the 35% max, and that he could sign essentially the super max that he missed out on in Dallas. I think ultimately he'll end up losing a little bit of money, but it'll be pretty close to basically what he could have got in Dallas. So I think that him structuring the future contract to getting out at the 10-year mark and getting that mega contract, I think that's the most likely scenario. As far as this summer versus like next season, I think it's probably close to 50-50, but I think it's kind of too early to tell, to be honest, just because, I mean, this is a guy coming off of a shocking situation. And I think you saw it in his presser and like even some of his comments and some of his body language. Like, I think this situation really deeply affected him. I think he thought he was going to sign the Supermax in Dallas and retire a Maverick and be the next Dirk Nowitzki for that franchise. And the fact that that didn't happen, and he lost $100 million on top of that, like, I think he's still processing and figuring out what he wants to do. So to answer the second part, I do think this is going to be a long-term partnership, and he's going to be a Laker for the next 7 to 10 years. But in terms of the timing of the extension, I would not be surprised if it ends up getting dragged out a little bit. But even if it does, I don't think that's a red flag necessarily. My understanding is it's too early to tell. I don't think there's a clear answer to this, other than the Lakers are obviously trying to make him feel welcomed and acclimated, and they're trying to build out this organization to his liking and his vision, and like, he is obviously the new face of the franchise, and moving forward they're going to empower him. But I again, I would say it's probably 50-50 he signs it this summer, kind of somewhere in that percentage range. But longer term, I do expect him to be a Laker, and I do expect this to be a long-term partnership. Pieter K, thank you for the super chat. Bro, Reaves is nice, not going to lie. Yeah, and I think this, again, kind of properly slots him where Austin is capable. We've seen when LeBron or AD is out, he can't step up and be the number 2 on a given night. But him being the number 3 and having the 3rd worst perimeter defender guarding him, like, he's just going to have such easier shots and opportunities offensively. And then again, I think he's scalable and versatile enough to help on the glass, to help defensively, and to lean more into like the dirty work role player stuff. So yeah, Austin is very nice. Rich Elizdell, sorry. I'm caffeined out right now, but thank you for super chat. Good meeting you today, Jovan. Good win, possibly a keeper. Good win, not good win. Nice to meet you, Rich. I appreciate you saying what's up, and that goes to all of you. Anyone that says what's up to me at a game, I always appreciate it. And it was nice to meet you. And I don't know if that was your wife or your girlfriend, but either way, nice to meet both of you. And Goodwin, I think, is possibly a keeper. I think he's done exactly like, it was funny kind of thinking through the exercise of like what shooting guards could be available during that little window where Mark Williams was a Laker. And Goodwin's kind of come in and done everything they've needed. He's been a good offensive rebounder and short roll playmaker, good screener. Like, we've seen him run 2-man game with Austin and with different ball handlers. He's also handled the ball in the garbage time, but then defensively, he's just a dog. As JJ refers to him in the bench group, a banshee. He just fits that. He fits that identity. So I think looking at like what the Lakers theoretically need from Shake and from Cam individually, I think he kind of blends both, where he has some of the I think Cam's defensive ceiling is higher, but as we've seen Cam struggle with injuries, I also don't think we see that defensive ceiling consistently. And there's good stretches of it and then not as good stretches. So I think Goodwin kind of provides that stable defense, but then offensively, certainly more of a higher floor and a higher ceiling than Cam. But then also, I would say, even compared to Shake, a higher floor, maybe not quite the ceiling, because Shake has put up 20 and 30-point games, in his past. Not as much, obviously, with the Lakers, just based on his role. But I think Goodwin, like, that's a guy they have to keep on a 2-way contract at least. And I think depending on how the next week or two goes with him in the lineup, if he continues to play like this, I think they seriously have to consider waiving Cam or Shake to put him on the roster. Like, I think like that's a guy that at least I don't expect him, because one thing I didn't touch on, and it's hard because there's just so many things that happened tonight. But JJ said so a couple of updates. Dalton has rejoined the team. Cam has not rejoined the team yet. Both guys, or Dalton got in last night and had a talk with JJ this morning, and Dalton's still processing everything. And the Lakers gave him the game off because he just got back last night, and they wanted to give him some space to just kind of, like, he was still with the team. He was still on the bench in street clothes. I believe he was on the bench in street clothes, if I'm not mistaken. But they wanted to give him some space. So that was the Dalton update. He's likely to play Wednesday in Utah, and it sounded like JJ was planning on putting him back in the rotation. So I would suspect Dalton becomes the 9th man. I think the top 8 is clear. It's the 5 starters: DFS, Vando, and Gabe. And then that 9th spot probably ends up being Dalton. And then maybe the 10th spot is Goodwin. Maybe they end up going 10 guys. But so I don't know if Goodwin's going to be in the rotation long-term, but compared to what we've seen from Shake and Cam, Cam's been just completely buried out of the rotation. Then he just had the birth of his daughter. That was the other update. So Cam is away with his daughter being born. So obviously congrats to him. But, based on the way JJ has not played him recently, even pre-trade, being away for personal reasons, which we now know what was the birth of his daughter. Like he was buried on the bench, and Shake has now been replaced by Goodwin the last couple of games, with Goodwin taking his minutes. So I think one thing with two-way guys is they're ineligible to play in the playoffs, and I would much rather trust. At least it's a 2-game sample size, so I don't want to overreact, but like it's been a pretty good 2 games, excuse me, and especially with Goodwood, it's a lot of good. I think he potentially deserves a roster spot, to be honest. So I do think he's a keeper. Winston McCarthy, thank you for the super chat. What is going on with the Jackson investigation? That's a good question. Been no update since the beginning of the season when we spoke with him. I believe it was in Detroit. Yeah, it was in Detroit. No update since then. So I have not heard anything from it. It seems to be, I mean, he's playing. Haven't heard anything, but it is something worth following up on. Harry Chinani, thank you for the super chat. Goodwin is a great piece. Wave Cam plus Milton, keep Wood due to his Luka connection. Convert Goodwin plus add a center from buyout for added insurance. That's certainly an option here. My understanding is it does seem like Wood, potentially because of the injury, just might be waived. But you could also waive. I mean, I think really in a perfect world, I think you could arguably waive Wood, Morris, Cam, and Milton and just get like 3 new players and maybe keep 1 roster spot open. Like maybe you convert Goodwin and add 2 centers, and like that's your rotation or your roster moving forward. Now Lakers can't do that. They can only waive 2 guys and add 2 guys. And my understanding, like they like Keefe. He's kind of their version of Udonis Hassel right now. He's got a great relationship with LeBron, a great relationship with Luka. I think they're going to keep him as a vet and as a locker room leader guy. Christian, again, no updates injury wise. Like he just basically doesn't exist. They never talk about him. It's, it is what it is. And then I think Cam and Shake just have not really looked like rotation guys for what the Lakers are trying to do. So I'd be open to either one of those guys. But I think if Christian's just not going to be able to play, I don't think you should have like Markieff isn't really going to play. Like he's just going to play garbage time. They gave him 1 shift and it did go great. So I don't know if you could just have like all these guys on the back end of your roster that like can't play it. And in Christian Wood's case, it's like he literally can't play because he's injured. So I think if he's really not going to be healthy in the next couple of weeks, I do think the smart thing is to waive Christian Wood, because I don't think you could just assume like, oh yeah, this dude's coming back in March or April and he's going to be able to stay healthy. Like I think that's a faulty assumption at this point. Thank you for, is he a real one radio? Veda, thank you for super chat. Lakers traded Hayes for a better Hayes. Is this, I mean, this version of Jackson has been awesome. And there was, I want to say it was it Rich Staples, friend of the show on X that tweeted out his B-ball index rim protection numbers were a lot of them. It was basically all A's and A minuses. And Crane just contextualized it a little bit of like, that's in relation to all players. So that's also in relation to guards and wings. So when you compare him to anchor bigs, those grades drop to B's. However, B's are better than what it used to be. He used to have a lot of D's and F's in rim protection. So Jackson has really improved as a rim protector, and then like it's kind of become an above average rim protector. And I think the one big issue with Jackson is the rebounding. And again, tonight, what was last in the starting group in terms of rebounds. And that's not everything, but it's been a weakness of his game. And that's like the one area that has actually gotten better recently in some games. He's had several games in like that 7 to 9 rebound range, but in general, he's a pretty inconsistent rebounder. And I don't think it's, sometimes there's good box out performances and he just has low totals. Sometimes it's he's getting pushed around in there, and like it's like the Steven Adams Rockets game where he's just getting mauled and he just can't compete and ultimately gets benched. So The problem is right now they don't have an alternative really, but I would have liked Williams and Hayes just as having two different options, and maybe with the way Hayes is playing, maybe he would have outplayed Williams and been ahead of him in the rotation or closing group or whatever. But I would have at least like the optionality, whereas now it's going to be probably Hayes, small ball, and like a vet minimum center who probably, like, if the Lakers end up with Alex Len, I would not feel comfortable starting Alex Len if Jackson Hayes goes down. Like, Alex Len, I think, is like a fringe roster player right now. So I'm personally not high on the move. I think the Lakers should probably find a better big. I get it, like, optically, if they want to just find their big and like add that player. But I don't think, I think Len is pretty much washed at this point, to be honest. Michael D, thank you for the super chat. I like these sets where Luka doesn't bring the ball up, but he's immediately involved in all the elbow actions. A double drag pick and roll kind of saves his legs. Yes, like that's another thing that, like, he's not, they're able to have LeBron bring the ball up, Austin bring the ball up. I still think a lot of it, like, I think when the usage shakes out, and I wonder if I might pull it up quickly on NBA.com, the box score usage from this game. I think Luka's probably going to lead the team in usage, but let's see. Let's see who led the team. Okay, so LeBron led the team in usage, but he also played almost 6 more minutes than Luka, so that could sway that, just with LeBron having non-Luka minutes, and when LeBron's out there without Luka, he's obviously going to have, but LeBron was at 34%. Luka was at just under 30%. Austin was way down at 17%. Rui was actually third at 23%. But I suspect that, especially as he gets more acclimated to the offense, Luka is probably going to lead this team in usage, or it's going to be really close between him and LeBron. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways that they can use him. And because they have, like, of course, Kyrie could do some of these things, right? So I'm not saying they couldn't do it before, but LeBron is a different level of a passer, playmaker, has a different level of size than Kyrie. And even Austin is a bit bigger than Kyrie. So, like, they could just do things a little bit differently offensively, where Luka doesn't have to do everything. And if you get Luka on the second side and he's able to read and dissect the defense that way, like, it's just, it's going to be beautiful basketball. Sean Tonoian, thank you for the super chat. Jovan, I was at the game tonight and saw you walk by me pregame and almost hit you with the yo-yo, but you see rush to get over to Luka warming up, so I didn't bother you. Great one tonight. Well, I appreciate the thought. Next time, you know what? I will never brush off a watcher, a viewer, a listener. I appreciate all your support. So next time you see me, please stop me, and no matter what I'm doing, I will come say what's up and at least take a picture or chop it up for a little bit, as long as I can. So in that case, I was rushing because the second Luka got there, I was like, okay, I don't know how long he's going to warm up for, and I just wanted to make sure. Like, it was, I'm sure you saw it, but the baseline when Luka was warming up was just like, it was typically it's you can barely fill out the entire baseline with media. This time it was like the entire baseline was full, and it was going like 3-4 people deep. It was just, it was a madhouse for Luka. Like, the other thing I didn't mention, they did the press conferences in this auxiliary room, where the only other times they do that are in the playoffs. And Kobe, like anytime there's a lot of media. So LeBron passing Kareem and Michael Cooper, like jersey retirements. I believe Kobe's the game after Kobe's passing was in there as well. But like, it's really reserved for like insane amounts of media. And that's exactly what we saw tonight. And another cool thing was Luka asked or answered questions in Spanish and in Slovenian in addition to English. So I think that the multilingual, especially speaking Spanish, is going to go a long way in LA. But great win, yes. And next time you see me, say what's up. Jan, thank you for the super chat. Dalton is so sad on the bench. I feel for Dalton. And I know, like, when I tweeted, because he was out for personal reasons, which were obvious as to what those personal reasons were. And like, I tweeted that, and I feel like a lot of people I saw a lot of negative comments on X, and that tends to be what happens on X. So maybe it's just the platform, but it's like, I mean, this dude was really excited to be a Laker, and I think like getting traded your rookie year is getting traded. Period. Like unanimously, like everyone says, getting traded sucks, and you have to move. And yes, they're multimillionaires, and like they're gonna have the most seamless move possible, right? And everything's gonna be paid for, everything's gonna be taken care of. But like you still have to move, and you're not picking the place you're going to. You're not picking the team you're going to necessarily, unless you have a certain level of power. And I mean, even Luka didn't. They traded him to a great situation and a great franchise, and they traded him, in my opinion, an upgrade from Dallas to LA. But still, he didn't have a say in it necessarily. Like they blindsided him. So with Dalton, I think there's just an element of like you're a rookie. You've not been playing as well recently, right? He's had somewhat of a shooting slump, prolonged shooting slump for a couple months. He's fallen out of the rotation compared to where he was earlier in the season. Then you get traded, and then you're processing all this, and I'm sure it was emotional. And then it gets nixed, and you have to go back to the situation. And on some level, just like from a human perspective, you kind of feel unwanted. And JJ could say whatever, Rob could say whatever. Like the teammate situation, of course, your teammates aren't trading you, so I don't think that's going to be necessarily something to kind of figure out. But like anyone with within the Lakers front office or coaching staff, or front office at least, it's like on some level they all signed off on it, or some of them signed off on it, right? So if you're Dalton, like you're gonna naturally be a little bit sad, and just like that, it's gonna eat at you. So I totally get it. I think again, he got back last night. I think he's still processing everything, and I look forward to whenever we talk to him, potentially in Utah, especially if he returns. But yeah, I mean, I feel for the guy. Like I think it's a tough situation. Johnny T, thank you for the super chat. How's LeBron? He left early in the last quarter. Well, we do not know because LeBron left without speaking to media. So we did not get to talk to LeBron about that. He returned to the bench, so I take that as a good sign. So for context, LeBron is still on the court early in the fourth quarter, which I don't really get because the game was over, but he was out there. And then I don't know the exact sequence of what happened, but he ends up somehow stretching or kind of hurting his abdomen, and he asks for a sub. He gets subbed out, and goes and talks to his longtime trainer, Mike Mancias. And Mike Mancias, he's kind of like touching his abdomen area, and they're talking for like 30 seconds. Then they beeline to the locker room, and we couldn't see it from our vantage point, but he was just in the tunnel stretching, and then he ended up coming back to the bench later. So I would say I think he's probably fine. We asked JJ postgame what his status was going to be for Wednesday. JJ said that as of now he's going to be playing, but he can't commit to that yet. So we'll see. LeBron does have a track record. This is kind of a little quirk. He tends to miss games in Salt Lake City. It's like a running thing with Jazz fans and Salt Lake media, like noting that. So I do think he played the last time they were there, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because that was the game where that was actually Jalen Hood-Schifino's best game as a Laker. But typically LeBron misses Salt Lake games, so we'll see. But either way, I think the Lakers should win it. Barnes, thank you for the super chat. Luka plays best with a center on the floor, setting him hard screen so he can get to his spots. Rui, etc. can't do that. Too much small ball won't work well. I think, so I agree with you. And that's where I think Jackson fits well offensively with Luka. Like Jackson, that's his game. Like he is, he's essentially a poor man's Derek Lively, right? Like cannot protect the rim or defend as well as Derek Lively, cannot rebound as well as Derek Lively, but like he is that big man archetype. He is springy, bouncy, and above the rim vertical lob threat. From an just purely offensive fit, Luka is going to have a field day with Jackson Hayes. Now to your point, I don't think Rui can do that. I think LeBron can do it. I think Vando can do it. And I think maybe Dorian could do it at least in like a pick and pop sense, but it's a fair point. I actually think Austin could kind of do it because Austin and LeBron have a pretty good two-man game, and Austin has experience screening for LeBron and operating out of the short roll. So I think now they're not like setting maybe the hardest screens, to your point, as a comparison to centers and bigger players. But I think especially LeBron and Vando can set those types of screens if they really intend to. And I think Austin can operate as a screener and out of the short roll. So I think they're going to get unconventional with it. We're going to see how it works, right? Like we haven't really seen Luka with those groups outside of a little bit tonight. And we'll continue to monitor that. But it is something of note, to your point. Those lineups have performed well. I will say that. But incorporating Luka, and with Luka defensively, like, of course he's not a stopper, but I think like he was taking on the John Collins matchup, and I think he has an ability to, but then he also was guarding Isaiah Collier later in the game. So like you see the scalability there in terms of like putting him on a power forward or putting him on a point guard. They were generally trying to hide him a bit. However, I think like he's strong and he's a good defensive rebounder. So he can get in there and battle guys and like be physical. And I thought he did that on several possessions tonight. So that's also something to monitor in terms of like the small ball identity. Bubba and the Old Man Auburn Sports Talk. What's the most awkward JJ press conference moment? It's a good question. Let me think. I would say it's still probably the Trevor Lane question in Memphis. It was not a bad question by Trevor, but I think JJ was just so pissed off after that game. And one thing about JJ, like it's now happened so many times, like he loves a good mic drop moment. Like he does it basically every press, like not every press conference, but almost every post-game press conference. He likes to have like the dramatic finish where he says the thing that's the headline or he leaves you with something emphatic and then he just drops the mic. And like that's kind of become his signature move. So I would still say the Memphis question, but I don't even remember the question at this point, to be honest, but it might have been something about the team playing hard or like what the message is, or I don't remember off the top of my head, but I would say that what was the most awkward. Like Phoenix, the first time he was just fuming the entire time. And it was like, even making eye contact with him. So this was their first loss of the season in Phoenix, the fourth game of the season. Just making eye contact with him, like you saw like the just pure like torture and anger in his face. So that one's up there. Miami one was pretty bad too. Miami one, he was just very like down and dejected. That was the 41-point loss in Miami. I would say like those are the top three off the top of my head, but I would probably still put Memphis number one. Braden, thank you for the super chat. Awesome game and still crazy to see Luka in a Lakers jersey. Jovan, I noticed during Luka's first press conference when you said Zdravo Luka, he smiled. Yeah, I'm planning on like I don't know that much Serbian. I know a little bit to be able to hold like a little bit of a back and forth. So I've taken Serbian lessons online in the past, and I want to pick that up and speak to him, like use that as a bit of an end, to be honest. Like we're both half Serbian. Both of our fathers are Serbian. I think there's a natural mutual connection there. So I've heard Luka is not like anti-media, but just not really interested in developing much of a relationship with the media, even with like the long time Dallas people. So we'll see. Maybe, new situation. Maybe he has a different perspective on it, but I am planning on speaking to him more in Serbian and hopefully developing that connection. Angry Lakers fan media, thank you for the super chat. Do you think a Luka Reaves duo could win a chip? We're saying Luka and Reaves as the two best players, I assume, is your implication here. I guess it's tough to say without knowing what the rest of the roster looks like. Like if you told me it's like basically Dallas last year, where you got a couple of rim running, athletic, like rim protecting centers like Gafford and Lively, and then you got a bunch of 3-and-D wings and defensive personnel, maybe even more similar to like the 2020 Lakers team, where basically the rest of the rotation is big and long and athletic and good defensively. Potentially, I still think, like I've said, I think the Lakers could win a championship with Austin as their third best player. I think second is probably, even for me, a little bit like of a reach. Now, again, I think it everything's in context where, like, if you really have, if you have 4 Dorian Finney-Smiths or KCPs or Aaron Gordons or like that type of player around, and then the athletic centers and like maybe one more ball handler, you could like, I could see it, but you would have to have a very specific roster build. You'd have to have great health. You'd have to really nail the rest of the group. So I would say, like, there's a very slim percentage chance that it's possible, but I would lean far more likely than not that you probably would need a second star to put Austin more as the number 3, and then still, of course, nail the rest of the group. But I think you'd have a little bit more margin for error. Like, I think to bring back the JJ and LeBron comments from earlier in the season, I think if you have a Luka Austin build, you don't have a high margin for error with the rest of the group. If you have a second star or a second player better than Austin and put him as number 3, I think that's a more sensible build to a roster. Harry Chinani, thank you for the super chat. Luka wants to be a top player for the next 7 to 10 years. He needs to be in better shape. With his current shape, he won't have a long prime, and I don't think he can play well into his mid-30s with his current body. I hear you. However, I think we could look at Jokic, and I think Jokic is in better shape than Luka, but Jokic doesn't always look like he's in great shape. And yet the last 2 playoff series, there were against the Lakers, there were plenty of possessions, and really going back the last like 2 years of Lakers Nuggets matchups, more often than not, Jokic was beating AD down the court, and his motor and his conditioning, and I'm sure part of it's the altitude, and that's an advantage, but he has a very high motor and good conditioning for a guy who at first glance does not look to be in at least NBA shape. Now, with Luka, I think some of this stuff's overblown. Like, I think you could go back. Like, I think if anything, it's the defense, and I don't know how much the defense is related to the weight and the conditioning. Of course, I think there's some correlation and relationship there, but like, I think if there's really anything to nitpick with Luka, it's like he was picked on defensively in the Boston series, in the finals, and Boston really targeted him and had success targeting him. And if you want to nitpick something, I think that's the thing you nitpick. And to me, the weight and the conditioning, like, again, even like being out of shape or at a certain weight, dude's still a walking 30-point triple-double when healthy. And like, I don't want to judge tonight as like his typical standard. And even tonight, I mean, if you extrapolate his minutes, he played 23, 24, you add another 12. And so he'd be at like 21 points, something like 8 rebounds and 6 assists or so. It's a pretty good game for a guy coming off of a 6-week absence and like with a new team and adjusting to playing with 2 other primary ball handlers. So I agree with the premise of what you're saying. I think it's a little overblown because, again, I feel like a lot of this conversation, it acts as if like the Mavericks have not had success and Luka has not had success. It's like the dude has made 5 straight All-NBA first teams in 2 of the past 3 seasons, obviously excluding this one because we don't know the playoff results yet. They've made the conference finals and the finals. So if we're judging off of results, like, He's been at worst a top 5 player, if not top 3, over the past few years. And he's made a conference finals and finals. And like maybe to get over the hump of winning a championship, he does need to get in a little bit better shape, be a little bit more conditioned. But I think like like they're acting like he's, I don't even know what, like they're acting like he's David Roddy. I feel like is a good shape for his size, but like this is an old, like they're acting like he's a big baby. And I'm like, he's not a big baby. Like he's a all NBA first team guy. And he's led a team to the finals of the conference finals. So like, sure, did he lose to the Warriors in 2022? And did he lose to the Celtics in 2024? Yeah, and both those teams won the championship. So I think some of this stuff is just overblown. And like, again, I'm not saying he can't be in better shape or like, I do think he needs to lose a little bit of weight and probably get in better conditioning. But I think people are acting like he's just some like guy off the couch that just plays basketball. And I'm like, I mean, if that's the case, then like whatever he's done has worked. Like it's worked. And again, you can fine tune, you could be in better shape. And we see this often with, I guess with the exception of Kobe, because he won so early in his career, but LeBron had to adapt his game and become a better shooter and play a different style a little bit. And obviously went to Miami, and Jordan had to get over the Celtics and the Pistons, and he also had to get some better teammates. And like, then it took him several years. So like Luka's just getting to that point of where, Jordan and LeBron were when they first won. And I mean, he's not even there yet, but I think patience and I think a lot of this stuff is over. And look, we'll see how the rest of the season goes. We'll see how the playoffs go. But like, I think for now, this dude has been very successful. And I think a lot of this is like kind of a smear campaign to justify trading him because they knew it was a mistake and going to be perceived as a mistake. And they tried to get out ahead of it and just throw him under the bus. That's my real read on the situation. Zoo, thank you for, or I hope that's how you pronounce it. Thank you for the super chat. Hi, Jovan, love your pod. What might happen if the Hornets dispute gets approved by the league? Is there any chance Mark will still be a Laker? So to be honest, I don't know what would happen. I've tried to talk to some people and figure it out. I haven't gotten a great answer. My understanding is that it is very hard to dispute a rescindment of a trade. And basically the Lakers just need an external doctor to agree with their assessment, and whatever the issues were that they deemed appropriate to nix the trade. If they can find an independent doctor to agree with that and agree with their assessment, which I would assume they would, because to nix a trade is a big deal. And I'm sure on some level that they were, as they were weighing what to do, they had to entertain the possibility of like, what if Charlotte pushes back against this? So I think this is just Charlotte making a big stink about this and not being happy about it. And like, I get it. They obviously liked the trade and did it for a reason and liked the package they were getting. But ultimately, the Lakers were not comfortable with the medicals and they decided to rescind it. And really, it's an awkward situation for everyone because, as we mentioned with Dalton, it's awkward for Cam. It's awkward for Mark. But I guess if I had to guess here, what would happen is I would assume there'd be some type of fine or maybe like fine that probably goes to they have to pay the Hornets $500,000 or something. Or maybe they have to give them like a future second round pick in I guess they still technically have their 2025 second round pick. So like maybe they have to give them their 2025 second round pick, but I don't think that's going to happen. I assume this is all going to be like the league will look into it. The Lakers will have their proof as to why they rescinded it. And that will be enough for the league. And this will just be a big nothing burger. We'll see. But based on my understanding, I don't think anything's really likely, going to happen. Sports Manda, thank you for the super chat. Any update with the Hornets dispute? with the Williams Connect trade. Thanks. So yeah, just to kind of continue that. Like I just don't. My understanding is it's really hard for a team to be able to like disprove a rescindment. Like they'd almost need proof that the Lakers intentionally took back the trade. Like you're basically accusing the Lakers of getting cold feet and regretting the trade and undermining it because of that. Like that I mean, that's really the implication here from the Hornets side. And that's a pretty heavy implication. But I think for them, it's they made the move. Like there's shrapnel on their side because now with Mark Williams, he is eligible for extension this summer, and then he's going to be a restricted free agent the following summer. And now they have to deal with the fallout here of we just tried to trade this guy, and now we potentially have to try to extend him or like renegotiate, and like he's going to make a double-digit salary, if not potentially like in that 20-ish million range. So like that's a lot of money to invest, and now they're in kind of a compromised situation. And really, they've also set the standard for like what the price should be. And as I said, and as others have said, and just talking to people around the league, like the price was for most people a little bit high, and they were a little bit surprised that Mark Williams went for that price. So I don't think Charlotte. I think part of Charlotte's also like we're not getting this price again, probably for Mark Williams. To be honest, and there could be an injury situation here to like down the road. So I think Charlotte's just salty about the whole thing, and they're just trying to make us think about it and try to make the Lakers look bad. And I think there's some bad blood there, and understandably so. All right, I am back into the chat. I'm going to go 10 more minutes until 1:30, and then I'm going to call it. Showstopper asks, do I have an update on LeBron? I do not. JJ said he expects him to play on Wednesday, but LeBron did not speak with us post-game, so I don't have an update. Littlefoot says Jovan with a bunch of exclamation points. What up, Littlefoot? F says Jemison can't afford the text he be getting. I love watching Trey Jemison play. I love that he got a flagrant foul 12 seconds into checking into the game. He is just a bowling ball out there, and he just wreaks havoc everywhere he goes. And I just love his style of play and just like the unintentional consequences. Logan Walter says, unless something drastic happens, I think Koloko's probably out of the combo based on JJ not playing him. Yeah, I'm not like there is the two-way limitation with Koloko, but even last game against the Pacers, he was active. And anytime a two-way player is active, that counts as a game played regardless of if they play or not. They can only be active for 50 games. So tonight Koloko is not active, but yeah, I'm not quite sure what's happened with Koloko. It's probably worth asking, but there's just been so much to ask JJ about lately that like asking him about Christian Koloko falls somewhere between like the 7th and 10th priority. And I got to go through the first 6 when I see him. Dominic Will Maganay, I think that's how you say his last name, from the Tasmanian. This is a name that, so I did a story at The Athletic with Sam Vecini, who's our draft expert on just all things prospects, all things basketball. And he actually pitched Will as a guy, and he lives in Australia. So he has a firsthand, he's had a firsthand look at him, and he thinks he's a guy that will have NBA interest and would make some sense for the Lakers. Anonymous Warlord, any word on Luka's minutes next game? I would assume, so we don't know the exact minutes restriction. I would assume it was probably mid to high 20s and like maybe 25-ish, and they were able to keep him under that. Like 25 to 28, I would say. And they're playing the Jazz again, so if they have a similar result, they could keep Luka's minutes in the low to mid 20s again. So I would assume JJ said that this is a call from the Lakers medical staff that like Luka wants to play 48 minutes a night. they are like, you just came off a 6-week injury. Like, we got to ease you back in. So I would assume he at least has the minutes restriction for the next game. Then it's the All-Star break. Then it's a back-to-back coming out of the All-Star break. And they don't have as long of a break because of the whole postponement situation. So I could see them maybe doing a couple more games, and then maybe that weekend after he's played like 4 games total, they lift it. But maybe coming out of the All-Star break, but I think at least one more game. Jay Note, thank you for the super chat. Jovan, how does Shake's contract work? Can you waive him and him not be on the books next year? Yes, he has 2 more years, both non-guaranteed. So it's effectively an expiring contract if you want it to be. Like, there's a guarantee date. I think it's right before free agency starts. So you have up until then to waive him. So that could be an option for the Lakers. I think at that point, there's a deadline I don't remember off the top of my head, but that he becomes guaranteed. But if you waive him by that point, he will not be guaranteed, and you'll just waive him. So I think that is the likely path for Shake. But again, we'll see how the rest of the season goes. Braden says, Brate, is Koloko hurt? Not to my knowledge. So I don't think so. JCU says, do you think we should still go after Jaden Springer? I don't think so. I think Jordan Goodwin has played well enough to keep his current spot. Obviously, he's not on the roster, but the Lakers have limited roster spots. And if they do end up signing Alex Len, I really don't like, if Jackson Hayes gets in foul trouble or injured, they're in a really tough spot where, like, they, especially if it's like in the playoffs, where they just like don't even have a big man that I would trust. And like Alex Len, I think you'd ideally like a guy who could like step in and like play 20 minutes. And I don't even know. I would personally like, I think Daniel Tice and Mo Bamba, like, still not good players, but I would trust those guys a little bit more than I would Alex Len. Like, I think was kind of on the trajectory of playing his way out of the league or getting to that point. And now it seems to be some butt. So we'll see. Like, he's a big body. He's physical. He's 7 foot. But I just, the fact that he's been a single-digit minute guy for 3 straight years concerns me a little bit. Because most backup big men are at least walking to like 12 to 15 minutes a night. And that's just not been the case. Glenn asks with a fun one, will Luka break the curse of the Lake Show jerseys? Yes. However, that would also require the Lakers to actually wear the Lake Show jerseys, which I don't know if they're ever going to do again. It's kind of been a quiet thing. They didn't wear them in the, I forgot, what was the game? What was it? The Knicks game? Yeah, it was the Knicks game. They decided not to wear it. And then they actually were supposed to just wear it against the Warriors on the trade deadline night, and they didn't wear them, and no one asked about it. And I regretted that after. But the Lakers have been avoiding those, and I wonder if they just don't wear them ever again. Britton, thank you for the question. Jovan, what would be your opinion if someone the Mark trade had to go through knowing the failed physical? I think you meant somehow. Well, I would like to know a little bit more. I have an idea of the situation. I don't have it firm enough to report, so I'm not going to comment on it. But I would like to have a little bit more context as to the medical situation. And if I did, then that would influence my opinion one way or the other. I think in the short term, I'd probably be okay with it. I think it's more of a long-term concern, but I ultimately was on board with the trade. So I would probably talk myself into the upside of it while knowing, like, longer term. I mean, they invested a lot of draft capital, so theoretically that's a guy you'd want to extend or resign. And if you you know, invested that much and then don't retain that guy, that's kind of the disaster scenario, right? Like you don't want to give up all these draft picks and then not keep the guy. But then also you got to be wary of like, is this guy going to stay healthy and is he worth investing in? So I think in hindsight, I'm talking myself more into them. You know, like it just is what it is. That I think the situation is going to remain the same. I don't think he's going to be forced onto them. But if he is, I think it's something that they have to navigate. And if anything, I think it potentially lowers his value in terms of contract. And that would be a little bit of a negotiating point in their favor in terms of just saying like, hey, like we like you, but we have these concerns longer term. So we need to find a contract that makes a little bit more sense. Or maybe there's a, you know, a couple of years are non-guaranteed or partial guaranteed or like whatever. Like I think they'd have to change the structure of his future contract. Kane Carter, always with the bangers. Jovan, what's your top 4 meals you've had if you were on row? I assume you mean death row, right? Not to be too grim. And my top, I'm not going to pick specific meal. I'll just give you like my top 4 foods. I would say a nice New York strip steak, medium rare. I would say a triple cheeseburger, no onions or pickles. I would say a burrito bowl. And I would say I'm in between like chicken parm and yeah, I'd probably go chicken parm or like a really good pasta. That would probably be my top 4 meals. I know this is what you guys came for. Sam asks, is anyone the Lakers sign going to be better than Koloko? I don't think so, and that's why I would convert Koloko, but clearly that doesn't seem to be the way that this is trending. Gene R asks, is Jahlil Okafor a good option or maybe Alex Len? Well, I have good news for you. It seems like Alex Len, it's trending that way. Jahlil Okafor just signed a 10-day with Indiana. And actually, the reason he signed it with Indiana is because Alex Len was going to sign with Indiana, and now he backed out and is considering the Lakers. So kind of a sliding doors moment there. Harry Chinani says, thank you for the super chat. Luka will dominate the next 3 to 4 years for sure, but I'm just concerned about the long term. Kobe jokingly said he would have 12 rings with Shaq if he was in shape. Just imagine what Luka could be if he's in shape. I hear you. And I also think like Luka's game is so skilled and talent based that he's not like a guy who in strength based that like he's not like some high flyer who like requires a certain level of athleticism or speed or quickness. Like he's a master at accelerating and decelerating in tight spaces and like he's super crafty. So I think his game is going to age well. He can shoot, he can pass, he's smart. I don't have concerns. Like maybe if we're talking like mid 30s, you could convince me of some concerns that like, sure, is he going to be the greatest star at 35 compared to maybe a Steph, a KD, a LeBron? Maybe not. Like I think it's far too early to tell. And again, I don't disagree with like that he can't be in better shape or better conditioned. I just think the only reason we're really talking about this right now is because Dallas had no real reason to trade Luka and justify it, and they leaked this to try to make him look bad. And like, if it just came out, if it was like, oh well, we don't want to pay him the supermax, or like, whatever, and that was not mentioned, I don't think we'd be talking about this. I think the only reason it's a talking point is because Dallas threw him under the bus and tried to blame this to justify it. And again, I made this point on Buha's block, but think about this. You had a trade where the reporter who breaks the news thought he was hacked getting the news. He tweets it out. He has to quote tweet it, explaining that, no, this is real. Then you have league-wide just like shock and disbelief that this is a real trade and cannot understand it from Dallas's perspective. Then you have Dallas leak all this stuff. Then look at the reaction in Dallas. You have fans have been revolting for over a week outside the arena, protesting signs, caskets, increased security for Mavericks ownership and front office, and concern about like even the players and how they're going to be received and whatnot. You had a guy today mouthing "Fire Nico" on the Jumbotron. Like, this has been an all-around disaster for Dallas. And like the one thing they've been able to do is put some doubt in people's heads of, oh, Luka, the weight, the conditioning. Like, again, this guy just made the finals. He just was top 3 in MVP. Like, he's again, like, this year, sure, maybe he's not been quite at the same level and he got injured and whatever. But like, I think this is like, again, I could be wrong. We'll have this conversation in 3 years, right? I'll still be doing this. We can have this conversation in 3 years, but I think he's going to be okay. Pieter K says, come on, gang, let's get them likes up. I appreciate you using a super chat to do that. And yes, if you are watching right now and you have not liked this video, please consider doing so. Sports Manda, who's the front runner as center for the Lakers right now? It's Alex Len. Omaris Hall, thoughts on AD? It sucks, and it's not entirely surprising because AD was injured when the Lakers traded him, and he was out, and then it seemed like, I don't know if he rushed to come back or what, but like he clearly came back a little bit too early, and then now he's going to be out for a bit, potentially quite a while. So it just sucks all around. Like, there's something over there in Dallas where like Luka got injured, Derek Lively got injured, AD got re-injured, Daniel Gafford just got injured, Maxi Kleba got injured. Like, half of their roster between, pre and post trade, like of the big men and like some important players have all gone down. So they've just kind of had like a cursed season from that perspective. But it sucks. I thought AD was having arguably his best season since the championship year. And I think like, I have a vote this year and I'm taking part in Tim Bontemps' ESPN straw poll. And I have to submit my 5 MVP candidates or like right now, if I was voting on it, and the number 5 spot's pretty hard. And I think AD has like an actual case to potentially be the number 5 spot. But like, now that he's injured and kind of looking longer term, like I don't think he's ultimately going to make the ballot, but he's had a really good year. It's just, unfortunately he got injured and now it seems to be a longer term thing. Kane Carter, can Luka talk to Jokic in Serbian? Yes, they can. Kari Khan says, dang, Jovan is going late. It's almost 5 a.m. Eastern. Yeah, I started late. I started after 12 a.m. Pacific time, but I am going to wrap. I've already gone 8 minutes over what I said I was going to go. So I'll go like 3 more minutes and then surprise, I went over. Phil says, do you think Bronny will be on the playoff roster? I think so. I forgot. Because it's a good question I hadn't thought about of like how many players are. So it is up to 15 players. I think they expanded. I think it used to be 12 to your question, and they expanded it to 15 now. So yeah, I mean, he's one of the 15 roster players. Royal says Cardio Gabe is on fire. Gabe's been playing awesome. Like, that's kind of the thing right now is like the Lakers, I can nitpick the starting lineup and the defense and whatever, but like Rui's playing really well. Jackson's playing really well. Vando's playing well. DFS is playing well. Gabe's playing well. Obviously Austin and LeBron are playing well. And then you add in Luka, who just first came back in 6 weeks, but like everyone's basically playing well. and maybe one or two of those guys like will have an off night, depending on the game. But like pretty much everyone's been playing well for like going on at least a couple weeks, if not like 3. And then some of the like Gabe's been playing well for a while, and Rui's been playing well for a while. Like, so it's just, yeah, the Lakers are really hitting their stride at the right time. So cool one from Sir William 301. My face hurts from smiling. That game felt epic in the first half. It was an epic game. See, Feng Charlie says that's why I need to do an Asian tour in the off season. Shanghai and Hong Kong, the best Western food. If you want to eat them, we'd be hooking you up. LOL. I will take you guys up on that. I'm not sure when I will be there, but I will try to make it there at some point in the next like 3 summers, I will say. L.A. What up? Jovan, any chance they go all in on small ball with Stanley Johnson coming back? I mean, so they added him to South Bay. He could be a dark horse option for one of the final roster spots. Potentially, yes, depending on how he looks, depending on how that goes. But I would say I'm a little bit, again, my general thing, and I went on a tangent about this last stream, particularly with centers, but like, I just think when guys are kind of out of the league for a bit, you rarely see them get back in or get back in a serious way. Like, there are exceptions. So of course you can go through and find exceptions, but for the most part, it's kind of like once a guy slips out of the league, especially a guy who has a pedigree like Stanley Johnson, lottery pick from a good school, a good basketball school, those types of guys, like once they're kind of out of the league, it's sort of like they are what they are. And sometimes it's honestly as simple as, teams just kind of, it can be hard to shake a reputation. And that's like another thing that a guy like Stanley Johnson has to battle. And not even, he doesn't have a negative reputation. I just think people have felt he's offensively limited. And like his defense isn't to the level that offsets how offensively limited he is. So there's always a chance. And I know the Lakers have liked him, but I would probably lean toward not. I think especially with the way Jordan Goodwin's playing, I would give him the inside track. Connor Phillips, what's the craziest thing you've seen in an NBA locker room? The craziest thing though some of the things that come to mind I cannot share. I would say I will say this. This will be one. This is a good one. Again, it's not the craziest, but it's one that I can share. My first year on the beat, I was covering the Clippers, my first year as a beat reporter. And in the locker room, the group was in New Orleans, and there was a rookie on the team. Maybe I've said too much already. There was a young player on the team. I'll leave it at that. And there was a couple of veterans, and the player had a girlfriend that he was very public about, like on Instagram and stuff. And they're going from New Orleans to Houston. And you heard the two players tell the guy, like, okay, like we got a spot, like we got a house in Houston, and we got some girls coming over, and like you're coming with us. And he was like, well, I'm good. Like and they're like, no, like you're coming with us. And like in that moment, you saw the corruption of how these guys like date, a bunch of people, and just kind of how the corruption starts with their young and just entering the NBA. So obviously, I did say any names, and I try to keep it as vague as possible. But that was kind of my welcome to the NBA. Like, this is how the corruption starts. I got you, Harry. No worries. No worries. Weed boy, thank you for the super chat. What are the chances we re-sign Rui? It's a good question. think I got this a little bit ago, and I said, I think it comes down to the price with Rui, and it also comes down to, so Rui's got one more year. He's going to be a free agent in 2026, and that's when the Lakers can have max cap space. So I think my understanding is that's also the summer that Austin will likely be a free agent. You know, he could opt out. So I think that they're going to prioritize. I mean, one, Luka could technically be a free agent. So it's going to be one, Luka. Two, trying to get another max level star to pair with Luka. I think three will be Austin. And then four will be potentially Rui or you know, kind of whatever's left. So I do think he's going to be a now, because of bird rights, they will be able to exceed the salary cap to retain Rui. So that is something that potentially allows them to keep him. But I think, you know, if they're going to use cap space, then that changes that, and the bird rights equation kind of changes. So I think it depends on what happens with like that, what happens with Luka and what happens with that other potential second star that they're going to try and get. If they don't, then I could see them maybe running it back, or at least temporarily, with the current group. But I would say, if you're asking me for a percentage, I'll say like 55-45, leaning toward him staying. But I think there's just too many variables between now and the summer of 2026 to like really give you a concrete answer, like one way or the other. I certainly see scenarios in which like they spend on Luka, they spend on another big name player, and like maybe they can't even keep Austin and he goes elsewhere, or they keep Austin, but then they can't keep Rui. So I would say he's at highest fourth on the priority list. And because of that opens up the door for him leaving, but also because of his bird rights, and depending on what happens with the other situations, like maybe they do end up keeping him. But I also think price is going to be a big part. And I think depending on the time of the season, you could justify Rui's overpaid or underpaid. Like right now, I think he looks underpaid. A few weeks ago, I thought he looked overpaid, and like he kind of fluctuates. So I also think it kind of depends on like where he averages out in terms of his production and just overall play. But I'm seeing some guesses in the comments, and you guys are not far off, I will say. But I'm gonna wrap here. I ended up going surprisingly 15 minutes over, but I do have some stuff I got to do in the morning, and then I'm flying to Utah tomorrow. But I did take some vlog footage tonight, so I'm going to put a vlog together of Luka's first game. It'll probably be a short one because I crazy night and had to balance working with taking footage, but I should have a vlog out at some point tomorrow. I will also, of course, be back Wednesday night for Lakers Jazz. And then I'm in between. I'll probably record an episode Thursday morning and have an episode going into the All-Star break. And then at some point do some content during All-Star weekend, like Friday's Valentine's Day. So I will be celebrating that with my wife. Saturday's a buddy's birthday. So it'll be a rare weekend / Saturday off for me. And then one thing I was thinking about, and let me know in the comment section, either on here or under the video, I was looking into maybe doing some type of Buha's Block meetup at some point. This weekend isn't as free as I thought it was going to be, but maybe watching the All-Star game somewhere in LA, with whoever wants to pull up. Would obviously be an LA location. And I know some of you, or many of you actually, aren't in LA, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Royal asks, why not Valentine's with us? Well, I am emotionally and metaphorically married to you guys, but I do have a wife, and I gotta put her first. But J Note says would be fire. Pieter says Burbank. Ash says bit far, but yeah, I would. Enarch says that's so cool. Kane Carter says 5 more minutes. Ryan Dagger says thanks again. Royal says flowers. Temperature says no, I'm in Australia. So I'll let you guys know. I might, if enough people say yeah, I will pick a location, and whoever wants to pull up and let's get a drink. Let's hang out. But let's watch the All-Star game, which probably needs some drinks to get through, to be honest. Maybe this year will be a little bit more exciting. But I appreciate you all so much. I'm going to wrap here. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. For those on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back for now, tentatively Wednesday night after Lakers Jazz. I will be in Utah for that one, and then back again Thursday with a new episode of Buha's Block. I will talk to you all then. Let me know if I should do a meetup, and maybe not. Maybe this weekend's too short notice, but in the future, certainly, if the Lakers don't win the championship, I will do a post-season meetup at some point. But let me know if you guys want me to potentially set that up. But as J Note says, like the video, and if you made it to this point, you are a real one. Shout out to the Late Night Gang. I appreciate you all. And I'll talk to you all very soon.